Hello and welcome to the BIS talks on quality management system as per ISO 9001. Let us first understand what do we mean by quality. As given in ISO 9000, quality is defined as the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics of an object fulfills the requirement. Taking this definition of quality as the basis, quality management system standard as per ISO 9001-2015 was formulated as a holistic tool to help the organizations meet their aspirations to ensure optimal level of quality in their functioning. Let us now try to unravel how this standard approaches the issue of managing quality in an organization. Let us now hear from Mr. Anuj Bhatnagar, Head MSD.
It is important to mention that the requirements of ISO 9001-2015 are generic in nature and applicable to any organization, regardless of its type or size or the products and services it provides. BIS has provided 738 licenses against this standard. Of these, 234 are government organizations, 134 are PSUs, and 370 are private organizations, including large scale and MSMEs. To name a few, NPCIL and IOCL from the energy sector, Ordnance Factory and HAL from the defense sector, Ultratech Cement and ACC Limited from the cement sector, BEML and Jindal Aluminum from the metal sector, Surana and Surana family for household.
This standard is based on the principles described in ISO 9000, which are as follows: customer focus, leadership, engagement with the people, process approach, improvement, evidence-based decision making, and relationship management. The potential benefits to an organization of implementing a quality management system based on this standard are the ability to consistently provide products and services that meet customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements, facilitating opportunities to enhance customer satisfaction, addressing risks and opportunities associated with its context and objectives, the ability to demonstrate conformity to specified quality management system requirements. Let us now go through the important features of the standard to understand how the principles stated above are to be implemented.
This standard employs the process approach, which incorporates the plan, do, check, act cycle and risk-based thinking. The process approach enables an organization to plan its processes and their interactions. The PDCA cycle enables an organization to ensure that its processes are adequately resourced and managed, and that opportunities for improvement are determined and acted on. Risk-based thinking enables an organization to determine the factors that could cause its processes and its quality management system to deviate from the planned results, to put in place preventive controls to minimize negative effects, and to make maximum use of opportunities as they arise. Let us understand these terms in greater detail. The application of the process approach in a quality management system enables: first, understanding and consistency in meeting requirements, then the consideration of processes in terms of added value, the achievement of effective process performance, improvement of processes based on evaluation of data and information. The organization shall determine the inputs required and the outputs expected from these processes, the sequences and interaction of these processes, determine and apply the criteria and methods which include monitoring, measurements and related performance indicators needed to ensure the effective operation and control of these processes, the resources needed for these processes and ensure their availability, assign the responsibilities and authorities for these processes, address the risks and opportunities as determined in accordance with the requirements, evaluate these processes and implement any changes needed to ensure that these processes achieve their intended results. then improve the processes and the quality management system. Now let us look at PDCA cycle. The PDCA cycle can be applied to all processes and to the quality management system as a whole. The figure here will illustrate how clause 4 to 10 can be grouped in relation to the PDCA cycle. Does the graphical representation of the PDCA cycle appear complicated? Actually, it's not so. What it basically shows is the interrelatedness and interdependency of the intervention areas required for quality in the functioning of an organization. We'll try to understand it with appropriate examples as we go along. The plan part of PDCA cycle starts with the defining the scope of the quality management systems for the organization as defined in the clause 4 of the standard. The organization shall determine the boundaries and applicability of the quality management system to establish its scope. When determining the scope, the organization shall consider the external and internal issues, the requirements of relevant interested parties, the products and services of the organization.
Needless to say, the external and internal issues will vary from organization to organization. And the best way to elaborate it is to hear from two of our license holders from two different sectors as to what they identified as external and internal issues in the specific context of their organizations.
As far as QMS is concerned, we started it 2012 in Chennai, and after that we started in 2019 in 3 plants, Lucknow, Faridabad and Saibabad. We are focusing on 2 basic parameters. One is quality, the other one is consistency, and we are matching quality and consistency as per the client's need, and we are going in that way. Secondly, we don't want to deviate from our standards because we are measuring standard deviations, and we do give more importance to customer feedback. We are developing continual improvement because it is a integral part of QMS. We are also striving for achieving these things.
We are into Silver Jubilee year of our association with Bureau of Indian Standards. Our association started in 1996, and since then we have been getting the fruits of quality management system and the ISO certification, where the audit is done by Bureau of Indian Standard officials, and their feedback has continuously helped us not only to do the existing projects better, but also to grab new projects in the market. Projects being in the government sector or otherwise, we won through ISO 9000 as one of the eligibility criteria. So the quality certification and the professional attitude and the feedback that we got during the surveys and audits from Bureau of Indian Standards officials, it has helped us to improve the quality of the project and even bag more projects.
The next task of identifying the interested parties is equally important to meet the customer's preferences. This will have to be done with reference to the statutory and regulatory requirements. Let us hear from our license holder on how they undertook this concept.
Customer satisfaction, customer requirements, customer confidence, product conformity and quality of the product, meeting the statutory and regulatory requirements, and process approach. These are the aspects what are being considered during implementation of the quality management system in our organization. Bureau of Indian Standard is a pioneer organization for certification and inspection of the products. During implementation of quality management system in our organization, we have got a lot of knowledge, and they have guided us properly, and they given all the technical supports, and they have also given the document control systems. These are the things what we have gained with Bureau of Indian Standard during implementation of the quality management system.
Once the external internal issues and need and expectations of interested parties is identified, the organization need to define the scope of its quality management system. For example, the scope of the quality management system for XYZ organization can be defined as manufacture and assembly of machined parts for commercial, semiconductor, laser, medical, defense, and aerospace industries. The design and development requirements of the ISO 9001-2015 standard have been excluded because XYZ does not perform any design activities, as all orders are processed in accordance with customer drawings or technical data. Next critical aspect of planning is articulation of the quality policy for the organization. The standard places equal importance on communication of quality policy, and one of the expectations from the top management is to ensure both vertical and horizontal communication of the policy to have the buy-in of the functionaries at all levels. The clause 5 of this standard emphasizes on these characteristics of the leadership and commitments of an organization. The quality policy has to have objectives which are measurable and monitorable. Objectives will need to be updated and recalibrated to the emerging needs of the organization. Top management shall ensure that the responsibilities and authorities for relevant roles are assigned, communicated, and understood within the organization. This marks the beginning of clause 6, planning for the QMS. For better understanding, let us hear from Officer of MSD.
One of the most important and recent aspect of quality management system is identifying the risk and opportunities. The need to identify these risks and opportunities is always expected from a prudent leadership, so that timely actions and preventive measures can be taken in order to reduce the undesirable events which can hamper the implementation of quality management systems. For the identification of risk and opportunities, the organization must prepare a risk identification, risk analysis, and risk mitigation chart. In this risk mapping, the organization have to identify risk and corresponding actions needed to mitigate risk depending upon its severity. The organization also have to document evidence to show the status before and after taking measures, so that one can see the improvement in the system before and after its implementation. Just to explain further about the source of risk, primarily there are 6 sources of risk. Risk arising due to internal and external issues, interested parties, legal requirement and other requirement which the organization has volunteered, operational risk and strategic risk.
Let us hear from the representative of our license holder what risk they have identified.
While implementing quality management system in our organization, we have divided total our organization into 12 divisions, and we instructed our HOD and core team to analyze the risks based on the infrastructure, the resources, manpower, and the process to determine the risks and the opportunity associated with the processes. Based upon the customer requirements and the requirement of the process, we have evaluated all the risks and opportunities. During implementation of the QMS, the risks what we have found is procurement of the resource, mainly on the training schedules and financial issues for arranging resources. But on the other hand, while considering the benefits of the implementing of UMS, these risks are minor.
Till now, in the intent, we have identified the external-internal issues, boundaries and applicability, need and expectations of interested parties, scope, policy and risk, and opportunities. The next important aspect that comes into the picture is objective and targets. Objectives are always measurable if practicable. For this, organization can establish short-term as well as long-term goals. These objectives are also to be maintained as documented information. Let us hear from Officer of MSCD.
Since the setting of quality objectives in one of the important steps in implementing a quality management system, it is important to set objectives using the SMART philosophy. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-oriented. When planning to achieve these objectives, organization has to prepare an action plan, chart, table that will indicate what is to be done to achieve objectives and targets, what resources are required for it, who will be responsible, when these will be completed and how the results will be evaluated. The record of same to be maintained. Next come in the planning clause of ISO 9001 is planning of changes. In order to realize the benefits associated with the identified risk and opportunities, subsequent changes to the management system may be needed. These changes could relate to any aspect of any process, such as its inputs, resources, suppliers, personnel, activities, controls, measurements and outputs to ensure that the organization has planned how to integrate and implement the changes into its QMS processes. The organization shall consider the purpose of the changes and their potential consequences, the integrity of the management system, the availability of the resources and the relocation and allocation of the responsibilities and authorities.
Now comes the do section, where one has to go beyond planning to virtually implement what all has been conceived and envisaged, and the requirements for do part has been defined in the clause 7 support and clause 8 operations of the standard. Let us hear from the officer of MSD.
For smooth operation, any organization requires a variety of resources including people, infrastructure, equipment, communication channels, training, knowledge repository and the environment in which all of these may operate. Without these critical support system in place, no organization can be successful. Therefore, it is important that the management determine the right quality and quantity of resources required to run their business and to be profitable at the same time efficiently and effectively. Clause 7 of ISO 9001, rightfully called SPORT, specifically talks about people, infrastructure, environment for operations of processes, monitoring and measuring resources, organizational knowledge, competence and awareness, communication and documented information as SPORT resources that shall be determined and their effectiveness evaluated to ensure that the organization delivers high quality product and services and which meets the customer requirements. The objective of effective quality management system can be achieved only by ensuring competence of the persons, increasing the awareness and determining the internal-external communication relevant to the quality management system. The standard underlines the importance of resource management as essential part of planning. Both human and material resource have to be adequate and appropriate to ensure the quality at every level and in every facet of the functioning of the organization. Equally important is the creation of work environment or ecosystem conducive to the attainment of the objectives set forth by the organization. A critical aspect of resource management is organizational knowledge. This standard defines it as an organization knowledge specific to the organization which is generally gained by the experience. Organizational knowledge can be based on internal sources such as intellectual property, knowledge gained from experience, lesson learned from failures and successful projects, capturing and sharing undocumented knowledge and expertise, the result of improvement in the process, product and its services. Whereas external sources such as standards, academia conferences, gathering knowledge from customer or external providers. When addressing changing needs and trends, the organization shall consider its current knowledge and determine how to acquire and assess any additional knowledge and required updates. Documentation is a key requirement of planning. The standard rightfully lays down the importance of documented information with respect to its distribution, access, retrieval, usage, storage and preservation, including preservation of legibility, control of changes, that is version control, retention and disposition. One of the important requirement defined SPORT clause of the standard is documentation. The nature of documentation has to be expanded in order to meet both the requirement, that is, which is required by the standard and also what is required by the organization itself to practically implement the quality management system. For example, you do not need to document procedure for every process, but you may need one for more complex processes. The extensiveness of this documentation will vary based on the variety of factors, namely size and nature of organization, mission and vision of organization, its product and services, etc. The organization shall ensure the corrective description, including its source of documentation, purpose of documentation, change in history, review, approvals, and communication channel while creating and updating the documents. The document shall be adequately controlled, balancing the needs for availability of document versus security from loss of confidentiality, improper use, or loss of integrity. Furthermore, there must be a plan and approach governing documentation dissemination, like what, when, and where documents can be accessed and by whom they can be accessed, along with its integrity, validation, revision, approval, storage, retrieval, as well as destruction status.
Now comes the operational part, in which the organization has to go beyond planning to virtually implement what all has been conceived and envisaged. Let us hear from the officer of MSCD.
Operations clause requires that an organization shall plan its operations, implement effective methods, and control the processes so that the customer requirements are met and quality of product and services is delivered as expected by the customer. Operational planning and control. This clause requires that the organization shall plan, implement and control the processes needed to meet the requirement for the provisions of products and services and to implement the actions determined in planning clause as explained before. Requirement for product and services. This clause includes customer communication to understand requirements, determining the requirement for product and services, including any applicable statutory and regulatory requirement, and a formal review to be conducted to determine if the product or services requirement can be met before making any type of supply commitment. The above review results be documented, especially any customer requirement changes, and that the proper personnel be made aware of any changes in this area. Design and development of product and services. The design and development processes, service or product is a very important phase in the product life cycle. Oftentimes, the design and development greatly reflects on the organizational success and future. The standard requires that the design and development should reflect the customer, interested parties' needs and requirements through the output. Control of externally provided processes, products and services. Your organization may be working with several external providers. These may be your suppliers of raw material, or you may have outsourced certain operational processes. ISO 9001 requires that you control and manage the external provider with effective processes. Production and service provision. This subclause include the requirement for control of production and service provisions, identification and traceability of output, property belonging to the customer or external providers, preservation, post-delivery activities, and control of changes for production or service provisions. Release of product and services. The standard requires that the release of product and services to the customer shall not proceed until the planned arrangement have been satisfactorily completed, unless otherwise approved by a relevant authority, and as applicable by the customer and the organization to retain the documented information about evidence of conformity and traceability of the persons authorizing the release. Control of non-conforming outputs. The organization shall ensure that the outputs that do not conform to their requirements are identified and controlled to prevent their unintended use or delivery, and documented information to be retained.
This was all about the operation clause. Now, after planning and implementation comes the checking part as defined in the clause 9, performance evaluation. Let us hear from the officer of MSD how the organization can evaluate its QMS performance.
The organization itself can evaluate its performance against the set parameters as defined in the standard. For this, the organization has to monitor, measure, analyze, evaluate, and accordingly conduct internal audits. What needs to be monitored and measured? Monitor and measure include analyzing the data for customer satisfaction, non-conformities, effectiveness of risk management, and external provider performance. Who can do the internal audits? Basically, internal audits are self-assessment tool which are done by the organization themselves, and they are done by internal auditors trained by the organization for the set purpose. These internal audits are done at planned interval as defined by the organization to provide information whether the quality management system has actually improved customer satisfaction and is conforming to its own requirement and meeting to its objective and targets. The findings of internal audits are recorded and reported to the top management, which will be taken up during the management review. Management reviews shall be planned and carried out taking into consideration various factors such as status of action from previous management reviews, changes in external and internal issues which are relevant for the quality management system, information on the performance and effectiveness of quality management system, adequacy of the resources, effectiveness of the action taken to address risks and opportunities, and obviously opportunities for improvement.
Now comes the act part of PDCA cycle, that is improvement clause. The improvement clause is comprised of two fundamentals of management system: non-conformity and corrective action. When any non-conformity is identified, action is taken to control and rectify it. Eliminate the causes of non-conformity by taking effective corrective actions and reviewing the effectiveness of those corrective actions. Continual improvement. The organization shall continually improve the suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of the quality management system. The organization shall consider the results of analysis and evaluation and the outputs from management review to determine if there are needs or opportunities that shall be addressed as part of continual improvement. Now that we know about the standard, let us hear about the certification of quality management system.
Organization desirous of obtaining system certification as per any management system standard has to do the following: pre-application stage preparedness, in which they have to understand the requirements of the standard, implement the standard and prepare documents as required by the standard, conduct training program for the employees to develop a shared understanding of the tasks to be performed, and then lay down the objectives and norms to measure progress against them. Then they will establish policy, identify risk and opportunities, institutionalize internal audit and management review, and then they will be ready to apply to BIS. Now application can be submitted online through the MSCT portal. To submit your application, identify the regional office under whose jurisdiction the premises is located and contact the concerned management system coordinator officer. If needed, MSCUR will support you and they will guide you about the process of application and extend all necessary help in the certification process. Now on acceptance of application, date of the stage 1 audit is communicated first, along with the details of auditor and the fees to be submitted. Stage 1 audit is performed to verify the authenticity and adequacy of the information shared by the organization regarding its preparedness through verification of documents, field visit, discussion with the team and top management. If there is any non-conformity, those are communicated for corrective action within the mutually agreed time frame. On successful completion of stage 1 audit, stage 2 audit is planned for final verification of the compliance with the requirements of the standard. In case there is some corrective action still required to be taken, 45 days time is given to the organization to do that. On successful completion of the stage 2 audit, license is granted, which has validity for 3 years. Now what are the post application stage? During the 3-year period, that is when you get the license, BIS undertakes 2 surveillance audits to ensure that the organization has stayed compliant to the requirements of the standard. I urge you to come forward and implement ISO 9001 quality management systems, because quality is the best plan. BIS, with its vast experience and strong team of professionals, will be by your side in this wonderful journey.
Undoubtedly, BIS Management Certification Service provides confidence to the interested parties, ensures improvement of processes on a continuous basis, ensures objectivity, confidentiality, and impartiality in the certification process.
This is related to our experience with the ISO process. We incorporated standards and processes in the organization which were never there before ISO. It has brought us closer to the customer. customer, especially through the customer feedback form that we send to all customers. More important, all the support departments were neglected, and because of ISO adoption, our purchase, our IT support, a couple of other departments have now got processes where data is generated to give us feedback about the functioning and the integration with the rest of the organization. Now, Sanjeev being MR as well as HR, Sanjeev, what is your idea and input?
Thank you, sir. We are operating the quality management system certification since 2008. Over the years, we have improved upon the processes. Being an ICT company, human resources is our biggest asset. So we measure and list down the three benefits. One is the cross-functional code view. It has helped us to set the best practices in the company. And secondly is the skill enhancement, which I see to meet the latest tech stack challenge. That is the second benefit you can see. And third, during COVID, we realized across the globe attrition rate. So through risk assessment plan, we could hire freshers from the college, and those were placed in the bottom line, and we could mitigate the risk of attrition, high attrition. So that's the.
Thanks, Sanjeev. We look forward to continued association with BIS to keep helping us maintain higher quality standards. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of BIS Talks. I hope you learnt and understood the processes and benefits of QMS.